Hey guys, today we're going to be doing a training on the TactileView design software. We're going to be going over the different tools and functions. I hope you guys enjoy it.
Welcome to Irie-AT Braille and Innovation.
Alright, so the first thing you're going to want to do is you're going to want to open up the TactileView software on your PC. So there's two ways of doing that. The first way is simply by double-clicking the icon on your desktop, or you can simply search for the software in your search bar on your desktop by typing out the word TactileView, and it should pop up for you. I'm going to go ahead and do just that. All right, there we go. Now you'll notice once I fire up the program, I get a bit of a canvas here, and you'll notice that I not only have a Braille label, which says title, but also over in the upper right-hand corner of the canvas, you'll notice that I have three diagonal lines, blue lines to be exact. And what those are is those are a orientation indicator. So what you can do is you can toggle the lines on or off. And again, what that'll do is give you an orientation indicator up in the upper right-hand corner. So once you're done creating your tactile graphic and embossing it out, rather than cutting the upper right-hand corner so your reader knows which way is up, this is going to braille three dots in the upper right-hand corner for you, saving you some time. Now I mentioned over in the upper left-hand corner that we also have a Braille label. So by default, it's going to give you a Braille label that says title within it, and that's of course so you can title your graphic. So you'll notice when I left-click on the label, it will highlight it. And you'll notice, or you'll know that it's highlighted because it has purple squares in each corner of the object or Braille label. Now, what I can do is if I left click and drag, I can of course move it around if I want. Or if I simply just double click in that title, I can go ahead and edit it with my QWERTY keyboard. So I'm gonna go ahead and do just that. I'm gonna hit delete. And then of course I can just type in there. And what's neat about this program is I'm simply just typing on my QWERTY keyboard, and it's going to convert it into the Braille table that you have previously selected. Now you'll notice over here on the left-hand side that we have quite a few icons or tools that we have available to us. Note that all of these icons or tools are also accessible through the drop-downs up above. But the first tool over here on the left-hand side is your text label tool. Now I mentioned the title, which is also a text label, right? So I'm going to go ahead and select that tool. And then when I select that tool, you'll notice to the right that I get a bit of a sub-menu over here. And I have a few different options. The first option within here is text in position computer keyboard input. And that's simply what I just showed you with the title label. When I select that tool, I'm going to left click on the canvas, and now I have my Braille label, and I'm going to simply type on my QWERTY, this is a test document, and there you go. Now, the second option within the text label tool, or submenu if you will, is your Braille keyboard input. And when I select that tool, I'm going to again come over to my canvas and I'm going to left click, and now what this is going to allow me to do is 6-key entry. So of course, if you're using a Braille display or note taker, you're going to use your Perkins style keyboard to do just that. But if you're using a QWERTY, you're going to go ahead and use keys SDF, JKL for your 6-dot entry. So I can go ahead and do just that. Don't ask me how to 6-key. I don't know how, but I think you guys get the idea. I'm going to go ahead and clean these up real quick. I'm going to delete them by highlighting, right click and delete. You can also just highlight them and hit delete on your keyboard, of course. All right, now I'm going to go ahead and select that text label tool one more time. And the third option in here is the coolest in my opinion, and that's our math input. So when I select this tool, I'm going to come over again to the canvas and I'm going to left click. Now, one thing to note is this dialog box right here may look a bit different depending on whether or not if you have a program called MathType installed. For those of you who aren't familiar with MathType, it's an equation editor. And what's nice about MathType is it allows you to build those complex equations, and you can literally just copy and paste them directly into TactileView, and it will convert them into the Braille table you have selected. But of course, if you don't have that program, then you're able to manually input. your equations, and that's what we're seeing just here. So we have the syntax of formula, edit field box. I'm gonna go ahead and type out an equation for y'all, if you will. If you know the symbols or whatnot on your keyboard, you can go ahead and do just that. But if you don't know what the symbols are, you'll notice over on the right-hand side that we also have a list of the different symbols and functions to select. All right, so let's go ahead and do something simple. We're gonna do, let's go y equals 2 x. Oh, one thing to note here, guys. So as a rule of thumb, as we know in math, when we see a variable butted up to a number, the rule in math is to multiply, right? We know that. So when you have 2x, it's 2 times x. So TactileView in this specific situation does not recognize that. So you actually have to add in the multiplication symbol, and I'm gonna do just that. So I'm gonna add an asterisk. Y equals 2 times x, and we'll go plus, let's go with 4. All right, now we have the ability to select our math configuration down below. Notice we have Mammoth selected. I'm gonna go ahead and hit Update Braille Representation. There we go. Now you'll notice also it says plot equation as grid here. If you hear the term grid, that means graph. But we're gonna go ahead and leave that blank for now. I'm gonna go ahead and just hit OK, and boom, there you go. We now have our equation in Mammoth, and we also have a print representation. So you'll notice that we do have that print representation, and it's in green. All that is just for visual reference. This isn't going to be printed or anything like that. Of course, if you have an embosser that's capable of interline printing both ink and braille, you can totally do that from this program. But most people don't and are just gonna simply be embossing, and so simply these are here again, just for visual reference. So now I mentioned being able to plot this as a graph or grid, as TactileView calls it. In the dialog box that I previously displayed, we had that checkbox to do just that. But you also have the ability to do it from your equation once you've pasted it onto your canvas. So you'll notice that I have my equation highlighted. I'm gonna right click, and then I'm gonna select Show Math Text Label as Grid. And when I do that, boom, there you go. Now not only have our equation, but we also have it graphed for us as well. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and delete that. We're just gonna move along to our other tools over here on the left-hand side. So directly below the text label tool, we have the import option. And what import allows you to do is do just that. You can import figures that TactileView has pre-built. They have a few different options in here to choose from. You got some arrows, it looks like you got some chess pieces and whatnot that you can add in if you like. You also have the ability to import an SVG file, as well as an image or JPEG, or excuse me, an image file such as a JPEG or PNG file. And I'll cover that stuff here in just a bit. The next tool is a select area tool, which again is something that I'll cover here in a bit, as well as the detect shape tool and the filters tool and the colors tool. So we're gonna jump over those for now, and we're gonna just jump down to some of the basic drawing tools. The first basic drawing tool within here is going to be your pencil tool, okay? And it's just, if you remember the Microsoft Paint program back in the day, it's similar to that. I'm gonna select this tool and get again a bit of a submenu where I can change the size of the tip as well as the shape, whether I want square or circle. And all I'm gonna do is come over here to my canvas and I'm gonna left click and drag to get my line. I can go ahead and shrink that down. There you go. Now, the eraser tool does just the opposite, right? So I'm gonna select that tool, and again, I have my value bar where I can change the size of the tip of my eraser, as well as the shape. I'll go ahead and adjust the size, left click and drag, and there you go. Now the following tool is the straight line tool. Pretty basic stuff, right? I'm gonna select that tool, left click, drag, and get a straight line. Not much to it. Of course I can select it, left click and drag and move it around. While it's highlighted, I can also right click, copy, and paste. Maybe if you're doing parallel lines or something like that. The next tool is our rectangle tool. And again, it's pretty basic stuff. I'm gonna select that tool, left click and drag. Not much to it. Go ahead and delete that. My circle tool as well. Now, this is where it gets a little bit more interesting. So we do have our circle or oval here, and you'll notice it puts these green crosshairs across the center of my circle. And again, because they're in green, those aren't going to be embossed. Those are just there for visual reference. And it's just in case maybe you want to add in a diameter or a radius or something like that. So in this particular situation, let's say we wanted to add a radius to this. So I'm going to go ahead and select that straight line tool. I'm going to come over to the center of those crosshairs, left click and hold, and drag down to the edge of my circle. And there you go. All right, now the next tool is the triangle tool. And this tool has a few more features in it that are a little bit more appealing and kind of cool in my opinion. So when I select the triangle tool, you'll notice in the submenu that I get a few different triangles to choose from. We have our right triangle, we have an isosceles triangle, an equilateral, as well as scalene or obtuse triangle. So I'm just gonna select the right triangle for now. Come over here to my canvas, left click and drag, and boom, there you go. You'll notice that we have our right triangle. You'll notice that our angle indicator is in green, right? A right angle indicator, meaning that it is not going to be embossed. That's again, just there for visual reference. You also notice that we have our angles labeled, A, B, C. And again, they're in green, so those are there for visual reference. Now, there's a few different things I mentioned that you can do with this other than being able to switch from two different types of triangles on the fly. So I'm gonna go ahead and highlight this, and I'm gonna right click on the triangle, and I'm gonna go to the option in here that's labeled angles and lines, and it says tactile indications in parentheses. I'm gonna select that option. And when I do that, I get a bit of a dialog box, and there's a few different check boxes in here that I have to choose from, if you will. So the first one being angle indication. So I mentioned that our right angle is only going to be there for visual reference, right? Maybe we want to braille that angle indicator. So I'm gonna select this first checkbox within here. And when I do that, you'll notice that my right angle indicator in my triangle switched from green color to blue, indicating that it's going to be embossed. Now, I also mentioned the angles, or braille labels in each corner. We have A, B, C. If we want those brailled, I'm gonna go ahead and hit that checkbox as well. Now, I know you guys are gonna ask this. You're gonna say, well, what if we wanna label them something else? What if we want it to be DEF, for example? So unfortunately, from this dialog box, you can't do just that. But if you wanted to achieve that, I'm gonna go ahead and uncheck this box, hit OK. I'm gonna come back up to my text label, select the first option. I'm gonna come over to the angle that I'd like to label, left click, and we'll go D. Then we can go E, and we can go F. Easy peasy. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and highlight the skin, get back into angles and lines, show you a few more things in there. So I mentioned the angle indication and the braille labels. We also have the ability to add altitudes, median lines, as well as bisectors, if you like. Once you have them all selected, hit OK, and they will apply. I'm gonna go ahead and hit cancel to clean this up. Now, another cool thing that you can do with the triangles is when I right click, again, there's another option in here for positions of anchor points. And it says right triangle 1, and then it has the position of it in parentheses. I'm gonna go ahead and select that option. And what it does is give me another dialog box, and I have a few different things that I can do within here. So first option in here, or first edit box that I'm able to adjust is the triangle shape. And when I select that drop down, I have, again, those 4 triangles that I mentioned in the sub menu. We have right triangle, isosceles, equilateral, or scalene. And when I select a different one, it's gonna change it in the background on the fly. So I'll go ahead and keep it on right triangle for now. You'll notice down below it says anchor points list, or angles, right? That's what they're called, anchor points in here. So we have anchor point A, anchor point B, and anchor point C. So note that anchor point A is our 90-degree angle in our right triangle. So down below the anchor points list, we have some edit field boxes, and there's angle A in degrees, and it says 90 degrees, but it's grayed out. And that's because this is our right triangle, right? It's got the 90-degree angle that can't be adjusted. But you'll notice when I highlight anchor point B or anchor point C, under the angle in degrees, it says 45, as it should, but it's no longer grayed out. It allows me to edit those. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna select anchor point B, and let's say we wanna change that angle. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna change this, let's change it to 60, how about that? So I'm gonna go ahead and type out 60 degrees, and I'm gonna go ahead and hit tab, and go ahead and watch the triangle in the background. If you can, it's gonna change for me on the fly. Boom. Now I'm gonna go ahead and hit okay, and there we go. So now what it did is it adjusted the angles of the triangle and did it to scale for us, so we can do it on the fly. The final option that I wanted to show you with the shapes is the pattern fill in here, if you will. So with any closed shape, you have the ability to add patterns to it within here. So I'm going to highlight my triangle. I'm going to right click, and then you'll notice that there's an option that says fill style, and it says texture. And in parentheses, it should say no texture by default. I'm going to go ahead and select that option. I get my select a fill style dialog box. I'm going to go ahead and select use texture fill. And then I'm going to go to choose texture. And from within here, there's all these different patterns or textures, as they call them in TactileView, to choose from. So we've got asterisks, we've got block waves, we've got all sorts of them. I'm going to go ahead and select drops of water, because we're in the good old lovely state of Oregon, where we get, about 300 days of rain a year. So we're used to that over here. I'm going to go ahead and hit OK. And now you'll notice that I have a preview, which has my texture in it. And then above that, I have my texture size, and I have my texture rotation. And there's a value bar to the right of each of those. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna adjust the first option, which is texture size. I'm gonna drag the bar to the left, and when I hit apply, you'll notice that my preview changes. Right? And then I'm also going to adjust the rotation. I'm going to adjust the bar to the left. I'm going to hit apply, and there you go. We got it raining from the ground up, just as it does in Oregon. Now, once everything looks good, I'm going to hit OK, and boom, there you go. We now have our pattern added into our closed shape. And this is nice if you're showing similarities or something in shapes, if you're doing geometry or anything like that, so your kiddos can kind of, tell the difference between, if you will. Now the next option within the toolbar is the polygon tool. I'm going to go ahead and select that option. And again, it's similar to the shape tools, but what this will do is I click and drag, and what it's going to do is it's going to keep creating lines, and I'm clicking and clicking and clicking until I want to close my shape or my polygon. And I do that by selecting the little circle where I started, and there we go. We now have our funky polygon shape that we can now manipulate. If we want to add texture to this, copy it, rotate it, all those types of things. The next option in here is the curved shape tool, which I don't see used too often, but it is a nice tool. And I'm going to again left click and drag. And I'm going to go ahead and select the option. You'll notice that I should be able to bend some shapes, bend the lines and whatnot. Go ahead and delete. Now the following option is the draw filled dot tool. And what this does is basically it allows you to draw a dot and you can scale it. But the one thing to note with this is that you can't change the size of a Braille dot, right? So what this is gonna do is it's not gonna make one big dot. It's gonna make a bunch of dots in one big circle bundled together, right? So just keep that in mind. So of course you can use this tool if you like to do just that, but you also can achieve the same thing just by selecting the pencil tool and increasing the size of the tip and just doing a click. Now the following option in here is one of the most useful tools in my opinion. It comes up all the time, and it's the draw a table tool. What if you just need a simple data table, right? So I'm gonna select this tool, I'm gonna left click and again drag on my canvas, and boom, there you go. You have a 3x3 table. If you wanna add data to it, you're gonna go ahead and select your data, or excuse me, you're gonna select your text label. Go ahead and hop over here and type her out. So this is obviously great for all sorts of data, but I often see this used for calendars, bingo, stuff like that. And again, by default, you have 3x3 grid here. You do have the ability to add columns and rows on the fly. You can only add them on the fly. If you want to if you want to delete rows or columns, you're gonna right click and select the option to do so. Insert or delete rows and columns. All right, now the following tool is a graph tool. So I showed you how to create a graph from an equation. This simply is a tool that has pre-built graph examples or formulas that you can kind of pick and choose, or if you just want a blank graph with no formula or function in it, you can do just that. So I select this tool, and then again, we have a bit of a submenu up here. The first option being coordinate system, no function, as I just mentioned, kind of a blank graph. Then you do have a few other options. They've got some advanced examples in here and kind of some more simplified examples. So they do have tons of them in here, but in my opinion, by the time you sift through all of the different examples in here, it's much easier just to type out your equation at that point. So I usually just go with the coordinate system, no function. So I'm gonna select that option. And when I do that, I get this dialog box again, and I mentioned they have a few different options in here to choose from. We'll just go with kind of a basic graph, if you will. There we go. And of course, if you want, we have our values over here, and we also have Y and X labeled. You can of course adjust these values as well, right? By highlighting the graph and right clicking, you have the ability to go into the X or Y axis settings. So we'll go with, let's start with the X axis first. I'm gonna open that up, and you'll notice that I have my lowest value is 0. Well, and we have our highest value at 8. Well, maybe we want negative values in here as well. Like maybe we want it to go to -8. So I'm gonna go ahead and erase that. I'm gonna type out -8, hit apply, and you'll notice in my preview, we now have negative values. I'm gonna hit OK. It's been adjusted. Now maybe we want to do the same to Y. So I'm gonna right click on the graph, select Y axis, and we have the highest value on the Y axis is 12. Let's go to -12. Hit apply, and there you go. Now we have our 4 quadrants there. Now the next tool in here is what they call Mammoth Braille. And I'm gonna go ahead and select this tool, and you'll notice when I select it and I move my cursor, I get a little woolly mammoth as well as a Braille character next to my cursor. I'm gonna left click, and then I'm gonna get a dialog box where I can just input text. And we're gonna start with, let's just do the letter T, for example, okay? I'm gonna go ahead and type out T, hit OK, and boom, there we go. So we have the Braille character, but it is much larger, right? It's not gonna be traditionally, like each of these dots on screen are gonna be multiple dots bundled together, because again, remember, you can't increase the size of a Braille dot, right? So some of you may be asking, why would this be important? I often see this used for flashcards, or kiddos who may be learning Braille, or maybe who still have some sight to help them learn. That's where I see this being applicable. And often I will use it in conjunction with the following tool that's below the Mammoth Braille tool, if you will, and that's just the draw letters and digits. And I'm gonna select this tool again, and I'm gonna come over to my canvas and left click. And again, I get a bit of a dialog box. I'm just gonna go ahead and type out T, just like we did, and hit OK, and boom. What this will do is it's going to produce the letter. It looks like it's in print, but it's actually going to be brailled, right? It's the print character, but it will be brailled. It'll be tactile. So again, this is great for kiddos who maybe has some sight and learn the alphabet visually, and then are learning Braille. So this might be a good way to help them. The following tool in here is if you want to insert a voice memo or MP3 file. You have the ability to add in memos, voice memos to certain things, where basically if someone were to be using a screen reader with this, you can add a MP3 file to a specific graphic or function, and when they highlight or select that feature, it's going to relay it aloud to them. Now, honestly, I don't see it used too often, but it is still in there if you like it. So, all right. So I showed you pretty much the tools within TactileView, and I mentioned that I wanted to cover a couple other tools within here. But the first thing, in order to do that, we got to bring in some sort of graphic. So I mentioned the import tool, where you can just bring in images, right, if you have them saved to your PC. But you also have the ability to simply just copy and paste them from the web too, which is my favorite part. So I'm going to go ahead and do just that. I'm going to go ahead and open up Chrome. I'm going to do US map. That's pretty easy. Oh, one thing to mention. So if you're doing a Google search term, of course, if you type out US map, there's going to come up with, well, first, Google's going to try to sell you a bunch of maps, right? And then you're going to get a bunch of beautiful maps with all sorts of colors and labels and all that stuff, which look great for the sighted individual, right? But all that complexity is going to be very busy. It won't be readable for a Braille reader, right? Because you have to think that those lines are going to convert into Braille. So what you want to do is you want to have your image be simplified. So simpler is better when it comes to graphics, as well as bigger is better. So one thing I like to do when I'm searching is, after my search term, I'm going to type out the term line drawing. Okay? And when I do that, I'm going to get simplified images, right? Another term you can use is coloring book, right? It's going to give you kind of a simplified images. So then what you're going to do, you're going to come down here to your good old Google search results, and you're going to find something that looks decent. And again, simpler is better. Oh, let's go with this guy right here. I'm going to go ahead and select this option. Now again, you can of course save it to your PC if you want, and then open it by using that add figure tool. Or if you're using a mouse, you can simply right click, copy image, hop back over into TactileView, right click, paste, and there you go. And I can size it, boom. There you go. We now have this brought into TactileView to be converted into a tactile graphic. So I mentioned a few other tools over here on the left-hand side. We have our select area, detect shape tool, and we have our filters tool. So out of all of the tools that we have here on the left side, the only tool that I actually use from the menu drop down above is going to be the filters tool. And the reason being is when you select it, the icons to the right in the submenu, which again are accessible through the filters menu, there's a ton of them. There's a lot of them, I should say. And many of them I don't use. And I'll show you the three most important ones that I use personally are going to be convert to line drawing, convert to black and white, or change line thickness, okay? So again, I just select the filters drop down from above because those are the first three options within the list and easy to kind of pick and choose between. So first thing I'm going to do within here is I'm going to change the line thickness of this in here. So I'm going to select that tool. And you'll notice that it kind of goofs it up in here, if you will. Oh, I should back this up too. So right now we're in what's called line view. There's an awesome tool up top called dot view, directly next to the line view icon. And what that does is when I select that tool, it's telling me right now it's going to display all of these lines in dots. Boom, there we go. So basically I like to look at this as kind of a live print preview, right? That's what that is showing. So each one of these dots is going to be embossed out. So you'll notice since I switched it to dot view that the lines didn't necessarily translate ideally. We have a couple extra spaces down here. Obviously Hawaii is not looking so hot. I will say this, when you bring in an image, it's gonna be very rare that it converts perfectly. It's very, very rare, so you're gonna need to do some editing with these. So again, I selected the change line thickness tool and we get this value bar. And when I adjust that bar, you'll notice that my dots start to remove if I go one way, or it will add if I go another way. And so again, it's not gonna be perfect. You kind of have to find your sweet spot. Right? We'll say, oh, that looks pretty good. And there we go. So now we have our image that has now been fused to the canvas. You'll notice that I can no longer move it around, but I can now edit it. So that brings me to the select area tool. So I need to mention, to kind of back this up a little bit. So there's two ways of having images or graphics in here. So when you bring in an image, it's seen as an image. So you can move the image around, but you can't edit it, right? You're not able to edit the image. So what you need to do is you need to fuse it to the canvas, or bitmap is what it's called in TactileView. And once you fuse it, you can no longer move it, but you can edit it. And so that's where we're at right now. By selecting the change line thickness tool, what it did is fuse this to the bitmap. And obviously, as you could see, it gave me the ability to edit the lines, but I no longer am able to move this around as I did when I first inputted it into the program. So that's where this select area tool comes into handy, or comes into play. I'm gonna select that tool, and it gives me my crosshairs. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna left click and drag. I'm gonna put the box around the object that I wanna select. And when I do that, it's now gonna give me the ability to move it. But again, remember, now that I've converted it, I can move it, but I can't edit it, right? So if I wanna edit this thing, then I'm gonna go ahead and fuse this thing by selecting the yellow box on the right-hand edge of the graphic. And it says fuse the selected objects with the bitmap. I'm gonna do that. And boom, you'll notice that now I can't move it, but I can edit it if I want. I'll go ahead and show you what I mean. There you go. Now, I mentioned the detect shape tool as well. This tool is handy for any object that is enclosed. And I find it handy with the maps and stuff like that. For example, the state of Texas. It's a funky shape, right? It's not really a traditional shape, if you will. But by selecting the detect shape tool, what I can do is I can click in the state of Texas now, and now it's converted it into a shape, just like we had with the rectangle or the circle or the triangle. I can now size this thing. I can now add patterns to it. Or if I want, I can copy it. If I wanted to, let's say maybe I wanted to do a blow up of Texas. Maybe I wanted to show, the capital or the major cities or whatnot. So I went ahead and highlighted and copy. We'll just go to File, New. Right click, paste, boom. And now we can scale it. And now we have the great state of Texas, nice and big for us down there. And again, if you want to add patterns, you can right click, fill style, texture, no texture. Go ahead and choose a texture. Of course, I showed you how to do that. We'll just go with the raindrops for now, hit OK, and boom, there they are. Now the last thing I want to show you in here is pretty neat. So I mentioned obviously importing images from Google. They also have an online portal built into this for TVIs or artists across the globe who have built graphics. And I do highly encourage, if you spend a lot of time on building a graphic, to upload it to this catalog. You can keep it anonymous. You don't have to put your name. If you want to, you can to get all the glory. But definitely it'll save you some time. And one of the more importantly is being able to use these graphics. So I'm gonna go ahead and open up the download and edit design from catalog option. And when I do just that, you'll notice that within here I have 4,800 over 4,800 graphics to choose from and growing. And you'll notice they're all in here by category. So I'm gonna go ahead and select biology. Let's try that out. And we've got a few different options in here. Let's go with, human anatomy, I guess. Now we have a few different options in here. Let's see, let's go with skeleton. I'm gonna go ahead and select it. And it looks like it's giving me the option to save it. And boom, there's our skeleton. Now, of course, I can edit this. Now, one thing that you should also know is that being that this is an international product, obviously there's gonna be different languages in here, okay? So you'll notice in this graphic here that all my labels are in a foreign language. And I believe this is German, but don't quote me on that. So one thing you may have to do if you're kind of borrowing the graphics is change the Braille labels. So, I mean, unless you're teaching a German anatomy class, but probably not. So, but if the only thing you have to do is delete a label and retype it as compared to building a skeleton from scratch, I think y'all can justify that. So, all right, once everything looks good in TactileView, you're ready to rock and roll. You're gonna go up to File, hit Print, make sure your embosser is selected and your paper size, hit OK, and there you go. And that's TactileView in a nutshell, folks. Stay tuned for more videos coming soon.
Make sure to subscribe to the Irie-AT YouTube channel for more great videos on the latest in Braille and low vision products.